Okay, let's get started. So the first section is going to be my insights for the week 8 reading. The first insight, I'm calling it Children Need to Feel Cared About to Feel Comfortable. I feel like I had a similar insight last week, but it just came up again because I'm thinking of one child in particular in our lab. She has been having a hard time coming into lab and being away from her parents and interacting positively with other children. And this week has been the best week so far. We have found that a few small changes in introducing her into the classroom and who comes with her and where she starts out have helped. But there was one thing that I thought was really interesting. One of our teachers, Christy, she was talking with her, and she said, "We're so glad that you're here and playing with us. We're so happy that you're here." And she was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "Are you sad when I'm not here?" And Christy said, "Yes, we're so sad when you can't come and play with us." And I think that's starting to make a difference, because the same child had told her mother previously that her teachers were being mean to her. And that just, it kind of blew my mind when we were told that, because none of us thought that we were being mean to her. But when we reflected on our actions, blocking the doorway so she couldn't get out, and holding her and picking her up and bringing her places that she didn't want to go, she definitely perceived those as being mean. And so, I've seen in the classroom how important it is for children to feel safe, and for children to feel cared about, and for children to feel wanted in the classroom. So that's something that we should definitely be aware of, and something that we should continue to build on, and let her know that she is welcome and that she is cared for. Okay, and then my second insight, I'm calling it the importance of first-hand experiences. This is something that I wish we do more of. I mean, I try to incorporate exposure to first-hand experiences, where it's like maybe they aren't directly doing it, but they're at least seeing it happen, and it's very concrete. But because we haven't had small focus lessons, then they're not getting as many of those first-hand experiences. For instance, my second lesson plan, when I was talking about colors, and they didn't physically mix the colors. I mean, they were able to in, I suppose, okay, that's a bad example then, because then I suppose they were able to do it when they were at the painting station. They could have mixed the colors. So I suppose that was but I guess, thinking about this past week with bread, it would have been really cool if in small focus groups we could have, actually mixed and kneaded the dough. And it was suggested to me to do the small focus groups, but I was hesitant in trying to do that because I think the children are just starting to get their bearings with this routine that we have right now. And so, and I think that not all of the children would have responded as positively to the small group experience. I don't know. And that's the thing. It's me just saying I don't know, and me holding on to my fears, I guess, my hesitations. But yeah, I've definitely experienced in my own life when I was a child, I loved doing things firsthand, having that direct experience. And the children, I mean, it's not going to be as meaningful if they're not doing it, if they're just being shown. And so that's something that I wish, that's something that I want to incorporate, I guess, more into the classroom, but I'm not sure how. I suppose it depends on the lesson, but I'll have to think about that for my next lesson, my last lesson. Okay, so my third insight, I'm calling it inviting with sentences versus inviting with questions. I found that asking children if they want to participate is not as effective as saying, "Come help me do this," or "Show me how you can do this." Even just thinking about this past week when we were in the block area and we had the wrecking ball and the soft blocks, when we were taking turns, the tower gets knocked down, but then it needs to be built up again. And so instead of saying, would you like to help me build this tower so that so-and-so can knock it down, I say, hey, come and help me build the tower so that so-and-so can knock it down. And I found that was much more effective than asking children if they wanted to do something. And I've seen that sometimes, when I say, oh, come and help me do this. It doesn't always work, but I've definitely found that it's much more effective. The inviting with a sentence, and having that verb in there versus, is this something that you would like to do? So that's something that I've noticed and something that I've been trying to incorporate into my practices. Oh yeah, so this the fourth insight that I have is called specific and genuine praise is effective praise. And this is something that I have known for like a really long time, but it was just really, and I see it all the time in my other classes, and it came up in the reading again, and it's just something that always needs to be emphasized. And it's something that I've noticed in my own life, even with adults, that it feels like there's this expectation that you need to be told, or that people want to be told that they're doing a good job, that they're doing a good job, that they're doing a good job. And this is something that we try to avoid in the classroom, instead of saying, oh, look, you did such a good job making that circle, or whatever. You say, oh, I see that you took that marker and you made a circle, and the circle is purple. That's, I don't know, it's drawing attention to the action versus the opinion that you have to give, I've just, in discussions with my roommates, I've found that they still get really anxious when their teachers don't tell them they do a good job, and this is something that, we're trying to avoid this in the preschool, but I don't know what's going to happen in their own future classrooms, but yeah, specific and genuine praise. And it's so the specific and the genuine praise. I feel like I'm getting off track. Specific and genuine praise. So there's a child who has struggled kind of cleaning up after himself with snack, and it took a bit of modeling at first, like hand over hand, and bringing him back to the table. But now the past couple of times he has cleared it by himself. And we've made a point of saying, oh, I see that you put your snack away. You put your cup in the white bin and you put your napkin in the garbage. Thank you so much for doing that. I think that it really has made a difference. And it was specific. It was commenting on his actions, and it was genuine because we were genuinely very happy that he was doing that. So that's the kind of praise that we need to encourage in the classroom. And then my last insight is timing is important when it comes to questions. Not even just when you ask the questions, but how long you wait after you ask the question. This is something that we talked about in the classes, in previous core classes. And it's something that I've been trying to do in the classroom, is when I ask a question, I just wait. I wait and I don't say anything. And I've noticed that, these children just need time to process. And once they have that time to process, then they can answer just fine. They just need a little bit of time to figure out. And some children need more time than others. There are a few students I know that I'll ask them a question and they answer almost immediately. And then there are some children I ask a question and they need to think about it for a little bit. And so that's been helpful, just waiting and giving them that time. And that's something that I'm going to continue to do. So that was the end of my insights section. Now we're moving on to implementation of learning. So my goals from last week were focus on building relationships with all of the children. And then my ongoing goal of praying and writing down specifically what I can do to help children or plan activities for children. I feel like my building relationships went okay. I feel like it was a bit hard as as a lead teacher, because I was trying to be everywhere at once, I was trying to be aware of the needs of the whole classroom. And so it was hard at times for me to focus on that specific goal of trying to build relationships with the children that I don't feel like I have as strong of a relationship with. There are some children where they're very comfortable with me, I'm very comfortable with them, and those got stronger this week. But I feel like, I don't know, I was helping in some areas and trying to put out small fires and trying to figure out other things. So I feel like that one suffered a bit. Also, I feel like I didn't make it specific enough. Like I didn't decide what I would do specifically to try to build relationships with the children that I don't have as great a relationship with. So that was another problem. But yeah. And then the praying and writing down. Again, I have a problem with the writing down. Well, when it comes to lesson plans, it's not as much of a problem because I have to write the lesson plans. But when I think of, I don't know, a lot of it happens in the moment, really. Praying and asking how I can help specific children. There was actually a really great moment. I don't know. I mean, like we pray before class, but as a group. But in my mind, I also say, in my mind and in my heart, I say a prayer, and I'm like, Father, help me help this specific child. And there was one. It was on Wednesday, and I was interacting with a young child, and she didn't want to put her smock on for art, and I was having a hard time. And then I had this thought in my head, and it was, ask Kennedy. And I was like, Kennedy, would you mind helping this child put her smock on? And I was listening to their interactions, and Kennedy ended up using a technique that we had learned like just the previous week, it just in the moment had completely slipped my mind to even think of doing it that way. And I'm like, oh my goodness, why didn't I think of doing that the first time? And I was just, I don't know, I was really grateful that I thought of, ask Kennedy. And I don't think that, I don't know, maybe it was just for me. Maybe it was personal revelation. I'm not sure. I'm not going to try to make a distinction otherwise, because it was a good idea. So regardless of where it came from, it was inspired, and I'm grateful for it. And so, yeah, I think a lot of it happens in the moment more than premeditated. But I think that I should be better at about like being conscious of different things that I'm going to do specifically for different children before I get into the classroom. So that's something that I need to work on. So my new goals for this week, I feel like I need to increase my parallel talk with the children who are learning English in the classroom, as well as the nonverbal children in our classroom, because I've noticed that I don't always keep up my parallel talk with the children who are more quiet, which was weird. And you'd think that I would increase my parallel talk with these children, but I noticed that sometimes when I'm interacting with those children, they're more quiet. I kind of reflect their behaviors, which I think is super weird, and I don't know why I'm doing that. But yeah, I remember I was stacking blocks with a young girl, and I know that she is still learning English, and we were stacking blocks, and we were just doing it quietly, and then it occurred to me, oh yeah, Ellen, you should be talking about what we're doing. And so then I did, and that was helpful, and she started to imitate a little bit of what I was saying, which was positive. But yeah, so that's something that I want to with a few other children who are nonverbal, I realize that sometimes I'm just observing them play. I'm just watching them and seeing what they're doing, and I'm not talking as much, which, yeah, anyway, so that's something that I want to work on this week, is increasing my parallel talk with the children who are learning English and the children who are nonverbal. And then, I think I need to set aside a time this week to pray and like write down specific things for the children. So I think, let's say tomorrow night at like 8 p.m. I'm going to try to write down specific things that I can do to help children, and then I'll do the same thing on Thursday night. So then I'll have like a time that I can do that, and then I'm specifically looking to write things down. So those are my goals, and I think having that specificity will help. Oh dear, just scrolled too much. Okay, and then the last section is my lead teaching section. I was a lead teacher twice this week. And some of these questions were about what went well, like what went well today, and I'll try to incorporate things that happened on both days, on Wednesday and Friday. So first question, what went well today? I feel like lots of things went well. These past 2 lessons that I was doing, I feel like were the most intentional of the lessons that I've made so far. I was really thinking about the interests of the children, and I was trying to think of their needs, and I saw a lot of engagement in basically all of the activities. There were a few exceptions. There was one that I thought would be really engaging with the car ramps. It might have been that the setup wasn't really inviting, or maybe that other activities on that same day were much more enticing, so then that's where they went. But yeah, the car ramps, like that, like none of the children really played with them. And I think maybe another thing too is that because I tried to go over there at one point, and I was trying to be very specific, and I did engage one child for a little bit, and I was pointing out the differences between the different ramps, but then he just wanted to move on to something else, so I don't know. So I guess that just wasn't as interesting as I thought it would be to them. But the wrecking ball, that was super engaging. The children really loved doing that. There was really great turn taking. I saw that they were smiling, and there were some children where even when they didn't get to throw the wrecking ball, they were still very positive in helping build the tower for the next person. And so, yeah, they definitely, I saw that they were very engaged with the wrecking ball. And then, let's think, on Friday, I heard that outside the aluminum jungle gym was very well received, that there were, at one point I did look out the window, and they were smiling, and there were like 3 children at the same time on the aluminum jungle gym, so that was pretty positive. I think dramatic play as well was very engaging. I saw the children, not very often have the children, like, we've put clothes out and the children haven't really dressed up, but on Friday when we had the little chef's hats and the chef's coats, they, more than a few of them, wanted to put them on, and they wanted to be bakers, they wanted to be chefs, and so they were engaging in the dress up, and then, yeah, they were holding the utensils, and they were pretending to make things or pretending to eat things. So yeah, I think those are some things that went pretty well. Evaluating gathering time. What were some positive aspects of gathering time? So I think gathering time, I was actually I was more proud of Friday than Wednesday. I feel like Wednesday I was really nervous about how the children would receive it. And I don't know, Wednesday, it was just, I don't know why I was so nervous, but when I got to gathering time, I was so nervous. And I feel like it went fairly well. I think that they were still interested. They ended up sitting and they were listening, and they enjoyed watching for the most part. And then when I gave them the dough, I think that was good. They really enjoyed having that in their hands. I could tell that a lot of them didn't want to give the dough back, so you can tell that was pretty engaging. So having something to hold, something to do, that was positive. But yeah, I think Friday was really good. I was really proud of that story. I cannot express enough how proud I was of writing that story. They just were riveted. Their eyes were wide, and they were laughing, and they were smiling. And so, yeah, that was very encouraging. And having that anticipation where it's like, oh, what's going to happen next? And then you see that it happens, and oh, what's going to happen next? And that repetition, that was very helpful, very engaging. What were the participation needs of the children? How are they met? So I would say that I'm thinking of one child in particular who doesn't always like to participate in gathering time. And I think I don't know if it's the type of activities, because I see sometimes that we might offer him something and he says, no, I don't want to do that, and he sits in the back and he doesn't participate. But when we were doing Bug in the Rug, I saw he was smiling, and he looked excited about getting picked. And so, I don't know, maybe it's just a specific different activity. Oh, I suppose that was closing circle, not gathering time. But yeah, I think I talked about it already with gathering time, having something to do and being able to participate. what I change for next time. I think, yeah, just continuing to practice. I definitely practiced more with Friday than with Wednesday. With Wednesday, I wasn't as practiced. I practiced it twice, and it's still like, I guess it didn't feel like enough, but I really practiced the one that happened on Friday. I wish I would have brought a bigger box, though. I forgot how, because I was practicing at home without the puppets, and I just had this normal box, and I forgot how big the puppets were, and so I got a box and ended up not being big enough, so it was kind of me digging around, but yeah. But overall, I think, yeah, just, it went pretty well. Closing circle. So, positive aspects of closing circle. I think this is the second or third, I think it's just the second time we've played Bug in the Rug. And Wednesday went really well, and I think it went really well because there were fewer students, and so they didn't have to wait as long to be picked. And on Friday, I ended up starting that game when almost all the children were still there, and I realized that some children wouldn't like sitting down for a long time, so I ended up doubling up, and I ended up picking 2 children at a time towards the end, and that was helpful. It made the game shorter, and it helped them so that they weren't waiting as long. And I think it was fun for them, because I think some children just really like being in the center and they like being picked, and so that was good. What would I change for next time? I think I should include more music. I ended up not bringing the Kindle with me to closing circle each time, or not the Kindle. I ended up not bringing the speaker with me each time, and I feel like we should have music each time in closing circle. I think that the music, and especially with songs that we haven't seen as much, like we've sang Milkshake a couple of times, and I remember in dramatic play, one of the children started singing Milkshake, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, we should sing Milkshake in closing circle, and then I didn't do it. And I think part of the reason I didn't do it is because I also didn't have the shakers. So I'm like, oh, it won't be as fun without the shakers, but that's kind of silly. I think they would like hearing the song anyway. So yeah, I think just, and I think it was good giving them options as well, giving them limited options. And I think we finally kind of drifted away from Runaway Boy. Runaway Boy was really popular, and I think that phase has kind of passed, because I would offer Runaway Boy or this, and they chose the other thing. And so I think that they want novelty now. So I think maybe doing new things for closing circle would be helpful for next time. How did I set clear expectations for children's learning behaviors throughout the day? So modeling and verbally expressing my expectations, and getting down on the child's level, especially with the wrecking ball. I knew that we would need lots of repetition and lots of modeling, and like really clear boundaries when it came to the wrecking ball, because some children would get very enthusiastic and want to push it very hard, or they'd want to go lots of times and not let other children go. And so sometimes I did have to hold the ball in place, so it was like that physical stopping, and then also giving that verbally. But yeah, that's the biggest thing that I can think of, and just being very verbal, being very clear, giving children more options. So like on Friday with the bubbles, children would flick their hands to try to get the bubbles off their hands. And so I'd say, oh, if we have bubbles on our hands, we should wash them off in the sink. And so then that helped a lot. So then there was less shaking of the hands towards the end. If you were to teach this plan again, what would you do differently? So I guess I would, then on Wednesday, I would change the science activity. I would change the car ramps because it just wasn't as engaging as I thought it would be. I also probably would have put a little bit less cornmeal in the table. I think we just need to put a little bit less of the materials in the sensory table, just so that things don't get out of hand. I'm trying to think of what else. I don't know. I feel like these plays were pretty good. I feel like the intentional teaching for everybody could have been upped a little bit. But I think that the activities were really engaging and the children really enjoyed them. So I think, with a few exceptions, I would I would keep the activities, but I would be more intentional about the way that we went about doing the activities. Lead teaching better this time compared to last time you taught? I would say yeah. I'd say that I'm getting better. I think the gathering time keeps getting better, which is helpful. I think that I was more aware of the things that were happening throughout the day. Brother wanted to talk to me about working on goals, specifically intentionally working on goals, and that's something that I do need to work on. But that's not just as a lead teacher, though. That's just as a teacher in general, remembering the goals that each child has, and trying to incorporate them into the different activities throughout the day. But yeah, I think I'm becoming a bit more confident. I'm feeling more prepared. Feeling better as a lead teacher. Feeling like I'm improving. What did I learn about myself? I learned that it's kind of difficult for me to be a lead teacher sometimes, because I do feel like I have to be everywhere. And sometimes I just want to stay in one area and engage with, one child for a while. And so it's kind of hard to get up and move, because I do like that one-on-one. I love working on children one-on-one. And so I felt kind of obligated to move around, and I felt kind of bad too, because I'd be interacting with these children and they'd be having a great time. And then I would feel like I'd have to get up and go see how other things were going. And I wasn't a huge fan of that, so it's something that I've learned, and something that I don't know what I'm going to do about it. I guess, I don't know. I'll figure it out. Some specific goals I'd like to work on for the next lead teaching day. I would say maybe go over the intentional teaching with the other support teachers. Because I think even just emailing the lesson plan, like even if I send it to them with time to spare, there's no guarantee how thoroughly they're going to read it, And so I think that it would be cool if I met with them like the day before, and I went over like the intentional teaching, things that we could do, and things that we could do to help specific children, because I think that would make the activities more powerful and more meaningful. So that's something that I think I want to do for my next lead teaching day, is like meet with the support teachers and go over my expectations. And it's been almost 30 minutes, so I'm going to stop talking. That has been my week 8 reflection journal.